Today is going to be a little bit low key in terms of educational components, other than to say, and I did talk to Keith about this before I put it in the slide deck about what I was going to do. Every now and then, I think that it's appropriate to put the cart before the horse. And so I am doing that. And I'm going to tell you about it, which is not always the best thing to do, but I'm doing it in a kind of a calculated way, and you'll see when we get there. All right, there are some new faces in here that I have not seen in the reports interest group. Welcome to all of you. You are encouraged to have your microphones in use if you want to. You can always use the chat box as well. You can have your video camera on if you'd like to. This is really meant to be as collaborative as can be and conversational as can be. I do tend to talk over people, so feel free to interrupt me, because I don't, it's always weird to have kind of dead silence in this format. But then I know that some people also take a second to process and decide what they're going to say. And so feel free, there will be no offense on my part whatsoever if you basically just throw a word in there to make me be quiet. So that's kind of the mode of the thing. So we're having these reports interest groups every 2 months at this point to basically keep the conversation going about the way that reporting happens in Evergreen, Indiana, to provide encouragement, because we all know that it can be a bit of a bear, and not a particularly well-mannered bear, probably one that just woke up and is super hungry. So, and to kind of both provide some more information about how to make it easier, but also to acknowledge that there are points where it's just not easy. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. Today, we're going to have essentially two different topic areas. The one that I put out in the email was not that, but good morning. That's me. I got a new phone number, by the way. It's in my email signature. So, but it's also right here. I'm pretty happy. It used to be Wendy Knapp's. I do feel like the cool kid that got the cooler kids hand-me-downs. So I got Wendy's hand-me-down phone number. So if you happen to have that still in your address book, it's me now. But we're going to be talking about some of the inbuilt reporting interfaces in Evergreen. And then we're going to look at Georgia Pine's quick reports. And when I mentioned that it was kind of putting a cart before the horse, that quick reports thing that we're going to talk about is the thing. So anyway, let's get started with what I actually put in the email reminder, which was those inbuilt reports outside of the reporter interface that are in there. Some of you may use some of them. Some of you may have forgotten that they existed, or they may be part of your daily workflows in your library. We'll go into the actual client in just a second and take a look at some of them. This is not by any stretch of the imagination like a full training on these, but also a lot of it's pretty intuitive. So all that to say, I have this list here on the screen that says local administration menu and circulation menu. And the reason that I put that there was to show you actually that a couple of these are the exact same thing, but they have different names in different places. It's kind of annoying to me because I really love consistent language whenever possible. I don't know why this happened. Maybe it was to perhaps be a little bit with the idea that it would be more user-friendly in the circulation menu to have them called list overdue circulations and list open transits, as opposed to transit list and overdue list, which is what they are in the local administration menu. I don't know. I wasn't privy to that conversation, and I just kind of roll with it and tell people these are the exact same thing. The other thing that I do want to let you know, and I see a lot of directors and managers in here, but I'm kind of hoping too that there are some people who aren't, is this the title of the menu, local administration menu, kind of leads people to believe that it only is accessible for people with local admin permission. And that is not necessarily true. Now, there are some things in there that may require that permission level, but these things, these reports that are in there don't. They're available to people with a CERC 2, maybe even a CERC 3 permission. I'm pretty sure that they are. Really, anybody that can log into the staff client can view these things. So including the patrons with negative balances, including the cash reports, I believe. They may not be able to do all the actions that are associated with, but they can definitely see them. So I'm going to go ahead and go into local admin. These are not all related to each other. So I do want to show you the interfaces, but understanding that they don't necessarily describe a workflow. They're things that would plug into disparate workflows in your library. The first is the cash reports. It's ugly. It's still in the Dojo interface, essentially. It may be rewritten in 3.8 so that it looks prettier. I don't really remember. I'd have to look back, and we're not going to take the time for that today. But it functions as well, so it doesn't really matter. Of course, when I go in here, I'm looking at the consortial collection, which is where my workstation is set up. And it's also my home library. So even though I do have working permissions at all of the libraries in the consortium, because that's my home library, it shows up there like that. And I'd have to check actually to try a different, you know what? I can do this right now. This is probably one of the bad things about this being a roundtable as opposed to a scripted training session. Is like, I'm going to try this while you guys are all watching. So I'm going to pick a different workstation, log in here, and then go to cash reports in local administration. So it is tied to your workstation as opposed to your home library. Good to know. And I'm going to kind of stay in Lagodi there, because why not? Because when I'm actually in the consortial collection, because we never have payments at a desk here, and we don't do anything with fines, this is always empty. So it would be really hard to show you something that was actually going on here. So I'm going to pick Lagodi, and I'm going to pick a random date in here. I'm going to let Anna in as well. And I'm going to actually leave this as a date range. Generally, you would have this for 1 day because it's going to show you that 1 day that you're probably going to need to document in some way in your, however you're tracking things. If you were trying to do some forensics to track down a payment, you may have a range selected in there, but generally it's going to be 1 day at a time. And it's going to, when you first get in there, it's going to default to today. So this can be pretty helpful if you're doing these things at the end of the day. You don't really have to change anything. So if you're at close, then you can see it. Now, if you're doing it in the beginning of the next day, you're going to have to change your date range there. And you can see that on September the 14th, that there were several things happened here. There are two sections. Desk payments refer to monies of a type that were transacted across the counter. Whether it's a cash payment, it could be a check payment or a credit card payment, those would show up here. If there are other types of monies adjusted at the desk, whether it be, say somebody has a negative balance and they credit towards it, honestly, this should be zero almost all the time. There are some exceptions to that, but not very many. But forgive payment's going to be one of the ones that you're going to see have the most stuff in it from my experience, whether it's forgiving a reprocessing fee or adjusting an amount for whatever reason. Work payment, I'm not going to say much about it. It's in there. Your library might use it. That's it. The end of what I'm going to say about that. Otherwise, I have soapboxes. And then goods payment, that would be something that you'd probably use for food for fines or something like that. And that's going to be tied to the person that's logged in at the workstation where it was actually taken. So you can follow who did the what. Another good reason here to have unique usernames. If you only have one person that works a Circ desk, Circ 1 is perfectly appropriate because you know exactly who that person is. But if you have 5 people that all have Circ 1 permissions, this probably would not be very helpful. Lagodi is a small library. They only have one person working the Circ desk at a time. And then for these payments up here, it's going to go by workstation. Is there anybody who does not use the cash payment or the cash report in your library? I will tell you, when I was at Hagerstown, we did not use it. It was available, and the reason we didn't use it is we tracked those things as they were happening in a different manner. And so I used it only if it was like for a forensic thing. But looking back, I do feel like I probably could have done things a little bit more efficiently if I had used it. Are there any questions about it? Okay, the next report in here, and this is the best report ever because it's usually the one. Susan has a very good point too. Since we went fines free, we seldom use it. Yeah, that's 100% true. And mostly the things that you would see in there would actually be in that second area. If you were doing some adjustments for some past things, and then for lost and damaged items, which hopefully, I mean, those are pretty niche cases, hopefully. I mean, the larger your collection, the larger your patron base, the more often they happen, of course. This report here, patrons with negative balance, is something you should check regularly. And for it to have nothing in it is exactly what you want to see. Because if you do have somebody with a negative balance, that means you're going to do some more research and see why they have a negative balance. And more often than not, you're going to adjust it to 0. Now, in some cases, some libraries do refunds, and that could result in a negative balance. Most libraries don't do refunds, though. So there's that. This is exactly what I like to see. It gives me joy every time I go in and see nothing there. Any library. And honestly, almost every library I've ever gone and done this report has nothing in here. So good job to everybody. Then these are the 2 that are repeated in the circulation menu. and then in the local administration menu. The transit list, which is called the list open transits in circulation, and the overdue list, which is called the list overdue circulations in here. So the transit list is a great place to answer some questions about the things that are going to and from your library. You decide how you want to use it. Right now, this is showing those things that are coming to Lagodi Library right now. As soon as they get captured, they're going to go, that transit's going to be aborted and they're going to go off of this list. If I want to see what my library has sent out, and I'm going to pick another library and get something with a whole bunch of, I know I'm skipping past libraries, but I'm headed to Plainfield. So we can see that they have sent out, and this is from today, they sent out today these 18 items. They have en route to them right now, and I'm going to actually increase the number of 26 items to them. So that's a good thing. There are things that you can do here. If you want to use buckets to somehow manage this for some reason, you can edit some item attributes from here. I wouldn't, but you can. And that's just me personally. I wouldn't, because I would use some other interface for that. And then canceling transits and printing the transits from here. So this can be a handy thing. Again, that is available here as well. And then in the local administration menu. The other one is the overdue list. And this is going to preset your dates here. And I should just change to a different. Sometimes I just want to see a bunch of data, even if it's, let's go ahead and pick Martinsville. Okay, so these are the things that were overdue in this date range, and it goes to 7 days ago, and the range being 7 days from that ago. So it's a week's date range in there that you can see. Of course, you can change that, but that's the default. And this is, in my opinion, a good way to do your shelf checks for overdue items. One thing that you can do from this screen is you can print this out if you want. I know a lot of people do like to have it like something that is printed that they can take with them. You can set this grid up to work for you. And in this case, I would probably want my call number to be first, and then my, maybe I want my author to be. Make sure I have everything I want there. And then this is going to repopulate. Then if I go to print this, it's going to be in such a manner that I can actually go to those places a little bit more quickly and check them out. So, or you could divvy this up as well a little bit more easily. And I think you could probably, let's see what's available in the picker here. That's what I would actually do. Have my shelving locations, which is called a copy location in this interface, which is super annoying, but there it is. So then I can actually click on that to have it sort by this. Actually, I did not move it, so because I wasn't reading correctly. Sort by this, and then print it in that order. I could go to each of these shelving locations then and deal with that. So that's is a super handy thing. I know that some people get recurring reports sent to them out of the reporter and to do this. And you can do that. I mean, it works. Obviously it works. This is based off of the same information that they're getting out of the database, but this is a really handy interface for checking your overdues. And you can do lots of different things here. You can link into your patron, link into this being a catalog search, and then link into the item, the holdings editor here. Okay, actually, I think that this is item status. I'm going to click it and we're going to find out. Yeah, details view for item status. Okay, and from there, you could go into the holdings editor. All right, any questions about those things? I do want to show one more thing, the holds shelf, which is not really a report. It kind of is a report. And then I want to take a minute and talk about using buckets to track information. Yeah. Any comments, questions, feedback? They do not have to be on what I'm talking about, by the way. It can be just about anything reports related. I'm going to go here while I'm going to go to the hold shelf while I'm waiting, checking the chat box over here. Okay, the hold shelf. I'm not going to click anything here, except for that's not true. I am going to click one thing here, but I'm not going to click the next thing. This shows what is on your hold shelf, and I'm going to expand this out. So at Lagodi, there are 29 things on the hold shelf, and you can see what the status of those holds are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show this, and I want to take, so what I did is I'm going to go ahead and I clicked on the show clearable holds. This is something that should be done in your library. Whoever does it, however regularly, obviously up to you. But if the hold shelf interface is going to be useful for you, it does need to be maintained. So showing clearable holds, when I click that, it's going to show things that don't need to be there anymore. Now, if they're on a physical shelf, they're going to need to be cleared, and then they're going to need to be checked in and reshelved. There are maybe some other things here. The canceled ones probably are not on that shelf. They could be, but I mean, you're going to check that physical location and see. Those don't really matter a whole lot. The ones that are showing as ready for pickup are the ones that are going to take a little bit more research. And you can see that, yeah, some of them were captured in 2018. Okay, no, I'm not, the canceled ones, I'm just going to let those ones go. They need to be cleared. We'll just say 100% they need to be cleared. They should not be there. But if we look at the ones that are ready for pickup, those may actually be on the holds shelf there. But if you look at the availability date, in this case, September the 23rd is the most recent. Things should only be on the hold shelf for 7 days, and then they have expired, and that's why this is now clearable. So if this was my library, this is not, and this is why I'm not going to press the button clear all holds, because it's going to clear all holds, including ones that you may want to keep on there. So it's not clear selected hold. It's like some of the bucket actions where it's just everything gets cleared. and maybe somebody called in for this or something like that. I believe, I'm just going to, again, not do anything here. There are some other things that you could do in here, but you do want the things that are on the screen. And I'm, again, not going, Julie, I don't know the answer. Julie has asked, why would someone want to keep old holds on this list? Just wondering. I don't know, but I'm going to leave room for what I don't know existing. That maybe somebody has a good reason for that, that I just don't understand or have not thought about or been told about. For me, I can't think of any reason. That's exactly right, Anita. Interesting, Rebecca. I've tried to clear canceled holds before and they didn't disappear. If that is the case, I would encourage you to submit a help desk ticket for that so that we can investigate why that's happening. It's not really one of those things that causes like some terrible break in the action in your library, but it is something that we should track the answer down for because it's not working as intended. Anita says they may not know how to delete, cancel them. True. So just a reminder, this is here. Are they cleared after the patron checks out the hold? Yeah, that happens automatically. So the things that are going to be on the hold shelf are things that are ready for pickup, and which we do want to keep. And I'm going to actually show all the holds. The things that are ready for pickup, and I'm going to actually pick another library real quick. That's going to have, let's do Eckhart's main library, because this way we're going to see a little bit more going on there. So you can see here, we have things that have not expired. The holds have not expired. I'm going to get the most recent ones here. So now if I show that those clearable holds, much smaller list here. And also much more current. And so this is just, and it's not unusual to have these things on here as well. This just when somebody gets the time to go in here and say, oh, I'm going to clear clearable holds. And that's, to me, this is actually pretty impressive. That this is the sign of a well-maintained hold shelf, in my opinion. So, yeah. Thankfully, you're not going to clear all those other ones. You can only clear the ones that can be cleared. How often should we clear this list? That's really up to your library. I mean, your staffing levels are going to differ from library to library. Your priorities are going to differ. It really depends on you and your decisions. This is basically just to say, this is here. This is how you do it. Do it regularly. Regularly is subjective. I mean, this is here for you. So if it doesn't help to do it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, something, I mean, it's not going to break anything to have it messy. And some people function better in a messier environment too. And that really, I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but it is the way things are. Let me go back and read this real quickly. I can't think of a reason to keep holds more than a year old. Yeah, but I could imagine waiting 3 to 6 weeks to see if items got picked up without being checked and gets oh yeah, that's valid. If somehow something got sent out without being checked out appropriately, and then to see if it comes back, yeah. Which that would also, when it got checked in, theoretically. That would also trigger some other things that would probably take it off of the list automatically. But yeah, I could see it leaving it on there a little bit longer. We found this list helps staff find the books that need removed from the shelf. Yes, that really is the big reason to have this. And you can, as you say, add the patron names to the list. I'm not going to do that here just because of patron confidentiality. You guys can all see the stuff. I don't know why it matters. But where you could go in and you could have phone number, and I mean, people could call from this list and say, hey, you have this thing waiting. The hold is expired. Do you still want it or not? We're going to give you like a day's grace period or something like that. Not that I'm advocating for going against that, the 7-day holds, but things have happened, or 2 days beforehand saying, you have this hold, it's going to expire. We're going to send it back if you don't come pick it up. I mean, again, it depends on your library. Okay. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about buckets other than to say that buckets are awesome, and you can see how things change in them. And I'm going to show you something that I'm working on. I'm going to go to record buckets, and this is not particularly full yet, and I haven't shared this bucket out yet, but I will. So I'm working on a parts project, and I'm going to, nope. Okay. One of the good things about some buckets, record buckets aren't the best ones to actually use for this, is that you can check the status here on certain things. So that, say I have these things in this bucket, and at some point, a Citizen Kane does get deleted. That bib record gets deleted, because in record buckets, we're looking at bib records. This would then automatically change, and then I could track kind of the status on that. It's similar to using queues in the import-export tool, just kind of to track things. You can print from this if you needed to. I'll show you one of my item buckets. I don't want to shame anyone terribly. Oh, let's see what I have in here. Oh, fantastic. So in this case, I could also add all of these different fields. Again, this could be, I'm not going to use that, that's dumb. So if this was something that I wanted to check for certain attributes of an item, I could use this and then also see changes over time. They're not version controlled, so you can't see exactly in this screen when each thing is changed, but it could be a helpful thing for you to do. I'll just leave that saved. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the thing that in my mind, I'm kind of calling this the match that I'm lighting, very close to a thing. So, and Keith is here. You know, he's laughing. I heard him laugh. Going back to one of the first things I said today, we know that reports historically have been difficult. I was going to say junk. They're not really junk, but they're difficult, and they cause a lot of consternation for even the most experienced Evergreen, Indiana person. The reports interface, we've gone through it a lot. We've looked at it a lot. It does work. It works as intended, and it still is beastly. we're not the only consortium that has come to that conclusion. In fact, the whole of the evergreen community knows that something needs to be done and has known that something needs to be done for years and years. And there's been this talk and that talk. And Georgia Pines, who was the originator of evergreen, are you really an experienced evergreen person if you never... Sarah, I don't know if new evergreen people doing reports have the ability to actually break the consortium like some of us did in the early days. And I say some of us, meaning my own self, when I did an infinite loop report, which brought the reporter itself to a standstill. It did not break the whole circulation module, but it did slow it down. Early days. There have been some limiters put in place now that stop that from happening. Yes, no, I don't know. Yes, I can't answer that question. We all have a little bit of trauma if we've been with evergreen for a certain period of time. Pines decided that they needed to just tackle this for their consortium and do something to make it easier for their libraries. And so we cannot actually access their quick reports page because it requires a staff login. And if I had decided to do this a little bit sooner, maybe I could have gotten one, but I probably wouldn't anyway, just because it deals with their patron data and I don't want to get in there and do that. So, but I do want to show you what this looks like and what I am going to be asking them for in about 1 hour. I've started the email that it does involve bended knee and the word prostrate. It is a quick reports. What it does is it builds essentially a website over the reporter and provides their libraries with some quick report templates that have already been created. They are for some of the standard things. And I will actually, I'm just going to throw this into the chat box here. You guys are welcome to peruse this at your own pace as well. This is kind of the place I wanted to spend the most time on here, is to show you that they have then these different categories. These are collapsible. And then from here, it tells you what type of report it is, the name, gives the description, which is what you would see in the reporter in the template, just like if you were to go into ours right now, if a description has been provided, and then to create the report itself. I'm going to skip over that. And then it provides this interface, which looks pretty much identical to what you see when you go into the reporter already. But because all the templates have already been chosen, they've already been organized, and there are instructions provided through here, it makes it much easier for them to get consistent data all the time. And to not have to go searching, not worry about how you're organizing your own templates or anything like this. This is something that they have the ability to just go in and pick from, run the reports, and then it saves the things. So they still get then the list of those reports that they've run. They have the options just like you do in the reporter, but it's a little bit more simplified to get the output and move on from there. So I will be asking them for essentially the code that they have used to create that website that pulls in these different things and see if we can't modify it to work with Evergreen, Indiana. Of course, our templates may be a little bit different. We'll have to wait and see what if they provide it. I'm making some assumptions, but they're very nice people and I'm very hopeful. So I wanted to show you that. Any feedback on that? It's not an incidental project at all. I think it could be very good for our librarians. Can we do something nice for them? Flowers, chocolate, gift cards. I fully intend to buy them all dinner as soon as we're face to face, and maybe a couple drinks as well per person. There are three people at their admin level that would be providing this. So I'm budgeting about $200 to $300 for them. Yes. And we are looking at some things. There was a project that came out, which is called a simple reporter. I don't think that it actually improves at all on what Georgia Pines has done here. I know it's not necessarily the prettiest thing, but who cares? It works and it's easy to understand and it provides the things that people need. So that's kind of what I care the most about. Anything else? Any questions that you had in mind before you came completely, that might have been completely different from what we talked about today, or whatever? Okay. I said okay, but you can still type things and I'll still be listening. So I do have, and I'm going to put into the chat, the form for you to fill out to say that you were here. Meetings are weird in Zoom and they don't always track who was actually in attendance. So if you could put your name and email address, I'll know that you attended today and can get LAU certificates to you, as well as a link to the recording. Then as always, you can also add to the topic list that I do look at and do try to incorporate into the things that we talk about. Our next meeting is going to be on December the 7th. If we want an overdue report for a specific type of item, such as hotspots, how would we make that? Julia, there are a couple different ways that you could approach that. If they have a unique circulation modifier, that would be one way. And that's another thing. I don't think that I would use necessarily the reporter for that. I would use the overdue. I don't know why I'm doing that. Circulation, and I would go by that circulation modifier and filter it, or sort by it essentially. Let me pop over here, because that is a column that you can select here. Yeah, I think so. And then once that's actually in here, I'm gonna just pick atoms. And then once you have that circulation modifier column, you can sort by that. And so you could then just look for that thing in there to review. And then also in here, you could have preferred last name, preferred first name, whatever. Maybe if you want to get rid of something here. Actually, it's not last name. Not middle name. And then maybe phone number, which I'm pretty sure that I just went past. Or email address or whatever. And that way, then you would have all of that information pulled up as you were reviewing it. So that's probably where I would go rather than running a report. So you could do circulation modifier, or if they're kept in a specific location, you could also use that copy location column as well. So that might be helpful to use that. Remember when you add your columns to save, otherwise they're going to go away. So that would be my recommendation. I mean, again, this is one of the things you can use the reporter, but having this report interface here that you can change your date, scope, and all those things may be much easier. Anything else? If not, make sure to fill out the check-in form, and I'll get this recording put up on YouTube, and you'll have access to it if you want to refer back to anything. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.